I'm going to bring another caller in from Atlanta, it looks like. Good evening. Welcome to the BCS Experience. Who's calling?
Good evening. This is Rosebud Green,
Well,
Byron.
well, welcome
How are
aboard.
you?
Oh,
Thank
everything
you.
is wonderful. So another blessed day in paradise. Do you know Charles S. Johnson the third?
No, I don't. Good evening, Attorney Johnson. How are you?
Just fine. How about yourself?
Okay. I was quite impressed listening to all the acclimates and the history behind you. I'm just curious. One question: What is your feeling and your take on the African American or black attorneys now? In the overall judicial system and everything in every phase, avenue, venue of law. How do they fare? Are they more respected than they were before now? What are your feelings on that?
I'm so glad you asked me that question. That's a question that I was discussing just over the last couple of days with a friend of mine who's a judge. And we were reacting to an announcement that appeared in the press about a meeting that took place in the White House, over the last couple of days on the issue of judicial appointments. There's been a long-standing issue about the pace. There's a huge number of vacancies on the federal bench, and the process of filling those vacancies has been very slow, and the process of having any diversity in those appointments has been very painful. And the press accounts of this meeting in the White House talked about the people that came from Atlanta. There were
4 white lawyers and 1 black preacher.
I love Timothy McDonald, but he is not a black lawyer. So why couldn't they find a black lawyer to go along with the white lawyers to that meeting? I mean, when I came along, there were probably 20 black lawyers in Atlanta. We now have probably 1,000. And
right.
there are in all corners of the profession, from the public sector as prosecutors and public defenders and government lawyers to lawyers in the private sector and corporations, partners in law firms. General counsel of Home Depot is a black female. The general counsel of UPS is a black female. You've got a lot of leaders in the bar who are accomplished African-American lawyers. But when it comes to this whole process of populating the bench, it seems to me that black lawyers are not often involved in the discussion. This wasn't always the case. I remember when, there's an organization in Atlanta called the Gate City Bar.
Yes,
it is the organization that is founded in 1948 by black lawyers who weren't able to become members of the Atlanta bar, and I became a member as soon as I began practicing in 1973 and became an active member and officer. And one of the things that I did when I was secretary in 1977 was initiate an engagement of that bar in the judicial selection process. And so for several years after that, every time there was a judgeship in Fulton County, where Atlanta is, or in a statewide judgeship, we made sure that black lawyers were consulted. That we made sure that we were consulted, and we made our views known, and it was part of the process for the voices of black lawyers to be heard from, and that seems to be less the case today. We have a pretty large federal bench in Atlanta, and there have been several vacancies that have occurred in that bench during the term of this president. There were 4 vacancies. 2 of them had been filled. But let me just say this. We had a high watermark, I guess, recently of black lawyers on that bench. There were 2 black judges on that bench, Horace Ward and Clarence Cooper,
That's right.
who were products of the community, and they were points of pride within the community. They have both retired and obtained senior status, so there's no full-time, for a while there was no full-time black judge on that bench. And when they began to fill the vacancies, the first vacancy that was filled went to a woman by the name of Amy Totenberg, who is a white lawyer from Atlanta. The second vacancy went to a gentleman by the name of Jones, who was a distinguished judge, black judge, who was not from this district. He was not from Atlanta. He was not from the Northern District of Georgia. He was sitting on a bench in Athens. So we still have no black judges from the district on the bench in Atlanta. We still have 2 vacancies to be filled, and there's a battle over filling them. But getting the voices of black lawyers heard in that process has been a struggle. I know that we had to go public a couple of years ago, complaining about, aren't there any qualified black lawyers in the Northern District of Georgia? And we had to do op-eds in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Atlanta Daily World, and it was only with that attention that we were able to have a meeting with the White House counsel, and there was some movement, and actually some more. There were 2 black females who were nominated by the president, but those nominations haven't gone anywhere. In fact,
Charles,
they were sent.
tell me,
Yes.
Charles, what's going on in Washington? Why we have this intransigency in terms of appointments? I mean, I grew up in D.C., and I'll tell you, I have never, my understanding of political process, understood why is it taking so long for us to have these appointments pass through the committees. What's going on? Why is the obstruction?
That's the same thing I want to know, because it seems as though, and why is it so, we never hear about it. How were we supposed to know that you guys were struggling to try to get some of these appointments? We don't hear about it.
I think that's a great question. I think that the people who are black, who are in the process, believe that because they're in the process, everything's under control, which is not necessarily the case. I mean, there was a commission that was appointed to advise the congressional delegation about the qualifications of possible candidates, and the challenge in Georgia is the Constitution says that the judges are appointed by the President with the advice and consent of the Senate. And what that has meant in practical terms is that there's been a process of senatorial courtesy where you look for the concurrence of the senators who are of the party of the president. Well, Georgia has no senators who are of the party of the president. And so the commission that was formed to advise about qualifications advised the congressional delegation, because the senators didn't care what any Democrats had to say. And so there was a short list that came from that process that went to the White House, and it was shut down by the senators who basically were taking a position that was anti-constitutional. The Constitution says it's the president's appointment. As far as they were concerned, it was their appointment.